What's up, everybody? Adam Arce from LowKickMMA, joined today by PFL light heavyweight Tom Lawlor, who has an upcoming fight on Thursday, June 17th versus Jordan Young. Tom, how we doing today, man?
I'm doing good. You know, I'm here in the bubble, so I'm ready to get out, as I'm sure everybody else that's in this PFL bubble is. So I've only got a couple of days left, and I'm ready.
That's crazy, man. So how much longer do you think we're actually going to be living in this, bubble 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after we fight kind of life?
I mean, I hope this is it. It seems like everything else is starting to open up. They actually, and for this this section of the PFL season, they cut down on the bubble quarantine. So, that's better than adding time to it. So it seems like things are moving in the right direction. But, I haven't heard what the situation is for the playoffs in August. I don't know if they're still planning on having some sort of quarantine or bubble. But one thing at a time. I gotta get through this one first. I still got 3 days. I might lose my mind. Who knows?
I hear you. Good thing you got this interview with me, though, to keep you entertained. Is this your first time in the quarantine bubble competing?
I did 17 days for the last PFL.
That's right, for Antonio Carlos Jr. That's right.
Yep. So, I was kind of accustomed to it a little bit, coming in the first time. It was really hit or miss. We had no clue what was going to be going on. Had no clue what the meals were going to be like, what our daily training situation would be like. This time it's a lot more chill, a lot less stressful, just because everybody's kind of been through it already. And the way that things were staggered, the first round, we actually had like all three cards here at the same time at one point, and that was pretty hectic, but now, like, the lightweights and featherweights are gone. They've been gone for almost 5 days. Mm-hmm. And once everybody starts cutting weight, nobody leaves their room anyway. So the heavyweights and females are here now. So once the heavyweights are in, it's a totally different world. Nobody's down eating, really.
You gotta save all the food for the heavyweights.
Yeah, until the heavyweights get here. Then, the buffet is full. The weight room is packed. So things change when they show up. I'm a heavyweight at heart, but
I know that.
These guys are on another level.
I hear you. So you got to watch the weight a little bit since you're still at the light heavyweight. Right?
Well, I'm probably on weight right now. I've realized after being here for a little bit that apparently I snack a lot at home. So I don't have access to all the chips and gummy bears and sour worms that I have at home that my wife buys. So it's pretty easy for me to keep my weight down here. Last night I think I had 2 meals for dinner, trying to get my weight up, but it just doesn't work.
That's what happens when you cut the gummy worms out, man. The weight just drops. Happens to
I know.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions about your fight with Jordan Young. Actually, leading up into your last 2 fights, the one with Carlos Antonio Jr., you had a 2.5-year layoff. The one before that, leading up to Duran win for Golden Boy Promotions, that fight was, you had a 1.5-year layoff. Leading into this fight, you only have a 1.5-month layoff. So talk about how you feel going into a fight with relatively no layoff.
It doesn't really affect me that much because in the first round, unfortunately, I was submitted, but I didn't take a ton of damage in the fight. So it wasn't like I had to take weeks off and recover from injuries. If anything, it's kind of the opposite scenario because I haven't been as active fighting. I don't have, the trauma from being in live fight situations. You can spar and you can go hard as much as you want, but there's nothing that damages you up like a firefight in the cage. And I guess if you look at it from the standpoint of getting back in there and fighting 6 weeks later, I'm lucky in that sense. Now I'm unlucky in the sense that I lost that fight, and now I have to essentially go balls to the wall for the first round to try to get enough points to make the playoffs. So I guess there's benefits and downsides to not being hurt from that first fight, but I'm as ready as I've ever been. So
Absolutely. That actually leads me right into my next question. For the viewers that are watching that may not know this, your upcoming fight with Jordan Young, if you want to make the PFL playoffs and have a chance to win that $1 million prize, you need to win, like you said, in the first round via KO or submission so you can get those 6 points. So let me ask you, I would imagine this is the first time you've been so heavily incentivized for a first round finish. Is that a potential liability, or do you think it's going to actually help you?
Well, I mean, I kind of looked at it, the first fight against Antonio Carlos Jr., I looked at it in that way as well. You know, I thought, obviously the easiest path to winning $1 million is to win in the first round every time. And, you know, that's a lot easier said than done. But, you know, I found myself on the bottom in that fight, and he was on top. And, you know, perhaps I could have waited and, you know, ridden out the 20 or 30 seconds that were left in that round on bottom and kind of just held on. But, you know, in my mind, I was trying to get up. I was trying to get back on my feet so that I could get a first round finish. And, you know, I guess ultimately, if I look back, that's kind of what led to the downfall. If I hadn't tried to stand up and get a single leg or double leg and get back to my feet, maybe I'd still be on bottom in that cage right now. Who knows? But, you know, that put me into a bit of danger, and he took advantage of it. So, this is a fight which is like, I don't necessarily, I mean, if you look at the point standings, there's 2 guys with 6 points. There's Cesar Ferreira and Antonio Carlos Jr. both have 6. Martin Hamlet got a second round finish. He has 5 points. And then Sorty and Jordan Young both have 3. So, you know, I would need to at least get a finish in the third round to make it through. But being the first fight of the light heavyweights on Thursday night, I'm not going to have the luxury of knowing what's happened in those other fights. You know, my training partner and teammate, Corey Hendricks, is fighting Martin Hamlet. So I've got to, you know, I'm obviously pulling for him because that'll, you know, if he gets 6 points, that'll keep Hamlet down. And, you know, I need to get 6 points, you know, I mean, let's cut the bullshit. I don't see myself getting through unless I get that first round finish. So I kind of have like 2 game plans going into this fight. You know, I have a 1 round game plan, and if that doesn't work out, then I need to have a second game plan in order to just get the W. So it's kind of it's a different situation, but you know, this entire format, this entire season, this entire year has been a different situation. So you know, I don't feel like any added pressure, I guess.
Yeah. How do you like that new format, the whole playoffs, the point system, as compared to the traditional MMA landscape?
I mean, there's benefits and there's downsides. You know, one of the things they tried to do, or that we were told they're trying to do with this bubble, is to protect the integrity of the season and kind of keep the same guys in the weight class the whole time. And I mean, if you look up and down the cards, you know, there's guys in and out still. You know, there's guys who have dropped out. There's guys who didn't fight in the first round who are now fighting in the second round. So, I mean, it's kind of like that's out the window.
You mean there's other injuries besides COVID? I completely forgot.
yeah. Or, you know, with such a quick turnaround, you know, there was a first round knockout, or a real quick first round knockout during the last fights. And I don't know if that guy got cleared or not. Yeah. You know, so there's benefits and there's downsides. Like I said, luckily I didn't get really beat up in the first round. I lost, but not getting beat up has kind of allowed me to come back here. But I fought in tournaments before, but this isn't like it's a tournament format, but it's not really a tournament. You're not fighting multiple times in one night. You have a long period of time in between fights where you can game plan for the different opponents. So, you know, I don't look at it really that much differently than I did being, you know, in the UFC or the past fights I have. Obviously you win and you kind of move on, or hopefully you win and move on to the playoffs. But it's still one fight at a time.
100%, man. You know, I want to ask you a bit about some of that UFC career that you had. You fought some of MMA's most prominent names during your time there. You fought names like Chris Weidman, Patrick Cote, Ryan Bader, and many more. can you kind of bring us on the fighter side and tell us who was the most entertaining buildup? Which buildup did you enjoy the most, I should say?
I mean, honestly, for me, I'm not really the kind of guy that talks a lot of trash about their opponent. If anything, my buildup is based on weigh-ins and walkouts and providing some sort of entertainment that's kind of out of the ordinary when it comes to MMA. You get a lot of guys that talk trash, and some of them are phenomenal at it. Some of them are terrible at it. But that's just not really, my personality. My favorite, the favorite one that I've ever done was the Dan Severn weigh-in. And then following that, I did a walkout the next night as Apollo Creed. And I was fighting in Canada. So, that got over huge with the crowd there. So I guess that was probably my favorite lead up and lead into a fight, even though I lost that fight against Joe Dirksen. I still had a great time getting to that fight. So that's the one.
How many new followers, new fans did you get after you put that Conor McGregor tattoo on your chest? I imagine that was your most viral stunt. Am I right?
Yeah. I think it was on, I think it was all over ESPN for a little bit. Now, actually, you say my most viral stunt, but if you go back to The Ultimate Fighter 8, there was a situation in which Dave Kaplan.
Oh, I'm going to ask you a question on that.
Okay.
I saw that.
Yeah. He wouldn't leave me alone in the bathroom. And, I had to take matters into my own hands. I had to lay the guy out. And there's a show, I don't think the show's on anymore, but there's a show that used to be Talk Soup, and then it turned into The Soup. Mm-hmm. And that was, when reality TV was kind of at its like height and its most popular, it would show clips from that on the weekends. And I was one of the top clips of the year that year for knocking out Dave Kaplan. So that was the thing that got me the most. Like, I was the most proud about that. I think I was number 8 or something on top clips of the year on The Soup. So that was a big deal for me back then.
Hey, better to be the guy that slapped the drunk guy than it is to be Dave Kaplan in that situation, right?
Oh, for sure. Although, to his credit, I guess he didn't lose too many brain cells there, because a couple of years ago, I'm flipping through the channels about 7 p.m. at home, and lo and behold, Dave Kaplan's on Jeopardy.
Yeah, so, Jeopardy. That's a show you have to be incredibly smart, unless it was MMA Jeopardy or something.
It was normal Jeopardy, and you say you have to be really smart, but I think the clip of me knocking him out shows a different side of that. and he actually finished with negative points, so he didn't even make it Final Jeopardy. So, there's not too many people that end up failing out on Jeopardy, but he was one of them. So, maybe that's due to me. Maybe, maybe I did take some brain cells from him, and that's why he didn't win. So
all he had to do was not hit the buzzer, and he could have finished with 0 points.
His reaction time was down from the punch. But
exactly, man. So my question on that topic of Dave Kaplan was, he famously says on The Ultimate Fighter in the clip, he says that you knocked him down, but you didn't knock him out. Do you still talk to Dave, and has he ever admitted that he was indeed knocked out?
I think the last time I talked to Dave was right after that, after he was on Jeopardy. He's the kind of guy that he led if I remember correctly, I believe he was in the military when he was not in the military, but I believe he grew up with parents in the military and traveled, the world quite a bit. So he spoke multiple languages, and I think for a while he found himself in Brazil for a few years. Then he was up in the Northeast in Boston. So every once in a while I would, hear from him. We'd keep in contact, but I haven't talked to him since that Jeopardy incident. I'm kind of embarrassed to tell people I'm friends with him after he lost on Jeopardy. So hopefully he's doing okay out there.
That's hysterical, man. I got 2 more questions for you. You have time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, man. So as everybody knows, you compete in both pro wrestling and MMA. Can you compare the fan base? Are the wrestling fans as fickle as the MMA fans? Do they turn on wrestlers after they lose one match?
No, there's benefits and downsides to both fan bases. The pro wrestling fan base, obviously, just due to the nature of the business, they don't care, really, if you win or lose. And when it comes to like my MMA career, I've kind of found that the pro wrestling fans really don't care if I win or lose. You know, they are more into the, not even necessarily the entertainment of it, but like the spirit that you can show, the fact that you continually get back in there and you try to improve and you keep going. I think a lot of fans kind of gravitate towards that, because not everybody is a super athlete. Not everybody is, you know, 6'5", has a super long reach, and is really athletic. You know, unfortunately, I'm one of those people. You know, I was a pro wrestling fan and an MMA fan before I was involved in either one of them. And I think that goes a real long way with both fan bases. You know, the pro wrestling fan base, they're a, I don't know how to explain this. I don't want to say they're uglier. Put it that way. The wrestling fan base is uglier. You don't have like, you go to a wrestling event and you don't have tons of chicks dolled up looking to impress people. I should have said ugly. They're more genuine.
Yeah.
In when I go to pro wrestling events, going to MMA events, you see people using it as kind of like a status thing. You see people all dressed up trying to show off. And as I've gotten older, I'm kind of less and less interested in that sort of lifestyle. So like I said, it has benefits and downsides. The partying with the MMA fans was a lot better when I used to go out and party compared to what it is on the pro wrestling scene. But, you know, like I said, there's a different time in my life now. So I love them both, but it's easier to deal with the wrestling fans than MMA fans. MMA fans are haters, man.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe
have the
more
same
ego
guy
in MMA.
Yeah, you'll have somebody, you know, in the same day, they'll go online and shit talk you. And then, you know, later on, they're trying to get your autograph, or vice versa. You'll get messages from fans. And if you don't respond quickly enough or the way that they want, then they're going to bury you and hope you get knocked out. So, you know, like I said, I guess I like both fan bases, but I like the wrestling fans better.
Yeah, cool. I don't blame you, man. It always, like, my brother's a huge wrestling fan, and I don't understand much about wrestling, but I could tell there's like a divide. Us MMA fans, we don't understand wrestling fans, and wrestling fans don't understand us. Am I right?
Yeah. And I kind of find myself in the middle of that. You know, I'm a big fan of both. So, you know, I'm sure maybe I have like split personalities. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm half douche and half half white trash. I don't know.
Genuine person.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Maybe somewhere in the middle. I guess I'm just a normal average guy.
Yeah, right. So on that same topic, obviously you have a lot of responsibilities in the wrestling world. Same thing with MMA. What's a typical training week for you look like?
If we, luckily or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, over the past year, you know, the amount of wrestling I've done was down. Mm-hmm. The amount of fighting I did was down, but we're in the pandemic. It wasn't my goal to take 2.5 years off from fighting. You know, if the PFL had contacted me this year, a few months ago, I don't know that, you know, I don't know what the situation would have been. I don't know if I would have stopped training over the past year. I don't know if I would have been done fighting. But I try to be a man of my word. And a year ago, right before the pandemic started, I was all in. I signed up for the PFL and I was gung ho. So being kind of put on the back burner sucked, but it allowed me to continue to train and, you know, not have to worry about being out on the road wrestling all the time. When I'm training and I have wrestling events on the weekend, it gets pretty tough. You know, usually, luckily I have a home gym. I've spent like probably $10,000 accumulating equipment over the past 5 years. So I have 2 young kids. So I figured, you know, if I'm going to be at home all the time watching the kids, I need, you know, a physical outlet where I can, you know, still train and not have to worry about the time constraints. So I've got pretty much a full home gym that allows me to train. So, you know, I usually wake up about 5:30 a.m. So let's say from 7 till 9, I'll lift and do some cardio. 11:30 to 1, I'll do some MMA training, and then I'll be back at night either hitting mitts or doing a jiu-jitsu class, that sort of thing, from Monday until Thursday. And then I'll have to get on the road on Friday morning, fly to some unknown location, wrestle Friday night, wake up real early on Saturday, usually like 4 or 5 a.m., go to the airport, fly to another place and wrestle again, and then fly back Sunday. But it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to recover when you have a schedule like that. So sometimes, it gets tougher and tougher as I get older to make it into those Monday training sessions early in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's, and you try to do as much as possible, right? Like I'm the kind of guy that likes to run it until the wheels fall off, which is good and bad. So I figure I can rest when I'm dead, and I'm alive. So
no time to rest out.
Yeah,
so from what it sounds like, from what you described, it's a lot of MMA training during the week, and then you're performing wrestling. That's not something people say, but you get my.
No, that's right.
Do you get to practice before you perform in wrestling? No.
For the most part, no. I was trained. Professional wrestling's weird. Like I was trained in 2005, and I was doing matches from I think 2005 to about 2007 down in Florida, and since then, I was fighting. I obviously fought in the UFC. I was with them for 10 years, and when I started going back to professional wrestling, I went to the gym, and one of the things that I found was that doing all the break falls, doing the rolls, lifting people against their will and not killing them. You don't want to destroy your training partners. So even if I'm doing an MMA class, if I lift somebody up for a slam, I'm not going to crush them on the mat. So if you can lift somebody up and who's an unwilling participant and take care of them, then I wasn't too worried about, lifting somebody up who's working with me.
But what about performing the various aspects, whether it's your tonality to sell, whatever storyline it is, or excuse me if this is extremely green, but if you have to bash a chair over somebody's head, don't you need to practice, whether it's the verbal or the stunts in wrestling, or not so much? You're just a natural.
Maybe some people do, but I'm not an idiot. I don't use.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah, I'm not going to bludgeon somebody with a chair.
Yeah.
I'll hit somebody with a chair, but I'm not worried about screwing that sort of thing up. People always say like, "Oh, you get hit in the head for a living. You're crazy." And it's like, no, you try to avoid getting hit in the head for a living when you're fighting. When you're wrestling, you have to allow kind of the other person to hit you. But one of the benefits of being hit, knowing what it feels like, and also hitting other people is, if you screw up, if you hit somebody in the wrong spot, or what it feels like. And a lot of the wrestlers don't have that same background. The style of wrestling that I do, currently I wrestle for a few different companies, Major League Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling. And the style that I do is more kind of like mixed martial arts. There's a lot of martial arts techniques, a lot of submissions, and, I'm not out there doing crazy shit and getting out of my wheelhouse. One of the things that, and people always ask about pro wrestling, is like, how much do you practice the match before you go out there and do it? And the answer is 0. Unless you live in an area where you train with the guys you're going to wrestle, you meet the person the night of that match, probably a few hours before. You talk, you go over some things. Maybe you have a half hour, an hour to get in the ring, and there's 30 other people doing the same thing, talking about the match. And maybe you get to, pick somebody up and practice a move. But honestly, a lot of it's on the fly out there. And like I said, that one of the benefits of kind of like the style that I wrestle being more MMA based is that people don't want to see me do like an American style Hulk Hogan kind of match. They want to see me do an MMA fight. That's kind of what I'm there for. So I consider myself lucky in that aspect. I went to the New Japan LA dojo in the spring, and I did a couple of days training there, and it was beyond intense. You know, like some of these guys, I don't know how they can train every day and get out there and wrestle on the weekends. I mean, it was really, really tough, but it was more like an MMA structure. It was more like an MMA practice than it was pro wrestling. So, you know, there's different styles. There's lucha libre, there's, you know, American WWE style wrestling, and then there's wrestling that's more based in mixed martial arts. So as you know, like Shinya Aoki is a champion in one of the wrestling companies in Japan. You know, I don't know how many people realize that. I'm
guessing it's a more MMA based wrestling promotion, like you were describing, that you compete in, or is it more of a showman one?
It's a little bit of both, but you know, there's no one, each match has its own flavor. So you don't have to, I don't have to cater to a certain type. You know, I'm there. What you want is, like, if I was putting on a show, even an MMA show, depending on what I was trying to build, I would have a variety of things. You know, I would have maybe a freak show fight like old Pride would. And then you have some legitimate, you know, real top of the line competitors as well. And if you look at, I mean, if you look at like how Pride was set up in the cards there, that is essentially what I think like it was pro wrestling. Pride was a professional wrestling company that was a shoot pro wrestling company. You know, not predetermined fights. That was the only difference. So if
there
you
might
look
have been
at
a
that,
couple, but that's up for debate.
well, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Maybe there was like 20 or 30, but over the course of a few hundred. So if you look at kind of the layout that they had, I think that's like the perfect setup for professional wrestling cards, for MMA cards. You have a variety of things. So you'll have guys who are high flyers on the same shows that I'm working. And sometimes I wrestle those guys, but that doesn't mean I'm doing the high flying. You know, you kind of try to fit your style in with everybody else. And that's one of the things that I think makes it so cool. You know, that's, you don't go to the theater and see Phantom of the Opera, you know, and Lion King mixed together, but at a pro wrestling show or at an MMA event, you can see that.
That's awesome, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to your upcoming fight versus Jordan Young. Is there any prediction you want to make known, or do you want to give a message to your fans that are watching?
Yeah, I'll give the same prediction I gave last time, and that is I'm going to go home with 6 points. Now, unfortunately, that prediction didn't come true, so I don't know if you want to believe me or not. But
hey, you're due to have a correct prediction.
That's right. I'm due for one. So hopefully that comes true on Thursday night. You know, if I don't make the playoffs here in the PFL, and that's even with the 6 points, that's a real possibility. That's probably the end of the road for me. You know, I'm 38 years old. I've been fighting since 2003. I don't know if I really plan on retiring, but you know, maybe I just won't take a fight for a while. So
maybe you'll box Jake Paul. Who knows?
I don't think that's in the cards.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if I'm a big enough name for that one.
Yeah, that just seems like what everyone's doing. We retire, and then about 8 months later, we're going to just box a YouTuber. See?
Well, that's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah, true.
You know, not everybody's getting that opportunity. So, you know, I guess it's kind of do or die for my career on Thursday. But, you know, I've had a great time so far. Hopefully I'll be back in the playoffs in August. And if not, hey, thanks to all the fans out there who've been there for the past 18 years. And even if you're not a fan, thanks for watching, I guess. If you don't like it, through you.
There's that pro wrestling in you. You know, I speak on behalf of all fans. We appreciate your career. We've enjoyed watching you throughout several stages of your career. And best of luck on Thursday in your fight versus Jordan Young.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.